record to the cloud. Let me share. It's not the desktop. Where to go? Okay, I think this is it. Yeah, my laptop's a little slow today. I'm not sure why. Maybe in the background, I'll try and speed things up. Holy cow, it's slow.
Just need to stop that Bitcoin mining.
Yeah, I know. What should I say?
Maybe Emily.
Okay, there we
wants
go.
to help.
That's a
Can
little
he
bit
help
better.
you?
Okay, no, I'll get it figured out. I just wanted to get things started. So, this is, well, I don't think I'm going to specifically talk about the program plan status tracking specifically, but we did have the marketing call yesterday, and we talked about subdividing the marketing tasks among the marketing team. So that remains true for the other teams as well as it relates to the program plan. Feel free to someone has to own it, but it can be subcontracted to other individuals to spread the love. So there are a few things I want to get to first. The first thing is we have to have a steering committee call once a quarter. And I was thinking, hey, we could do it since it's bumping up to the end of the quarter, the next live hangout. The thing is, I may not be at the next live hangout. It's TBD until probably Sunday, Monday. So we have a couple of options. Either we someone else can run the steering committee call. And, obviously I'll find a designated person for Red Hat. Or we could reschedule and have it on a different day. So
I'm fine rescheduling.
I could pose the question. Mm-hmm.
I'm fine rescheduling.
Okay.
Yeah,
we could do it during the technical call if we wanted to, since we already have that time kind of blocked out, or we could find a different time.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Emily.
So when is the steering committee call you penciled in?
Well, typically it replaces a live hangout, right? And the next live hangout is where I may not be here. I'm a soccer dad, and it's first an elimination round, and I won't know until actually probably Sunday.
So basically you are saying 21st of June, right?
I did not even look at the date, but two weeks from today.
21st. So you know what, John? I recommend. Sorry, so let me interject here.
I think Emily was asking a question so she could then make a statement.
So go ahead.
Let her finish.
Yeah. So that day I'm traveling. I think it's better to
reschedule.
Reschedule it. So next week
we could reschedule it for the during the technical call.
Yeah, that's fine.
Fine with me.
There's no conferences or anything next week?
No
that might impact attendance?
Yeah, I don't think so. But you see, just to avoid
did you want to do the next week call or the one after that?
Yeah,
well,
I would prefer the next week, because otherwise I had a conflict with the Cloudland if we have it in 3 weeks.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say the same. I will be at Cloudland as well. So next week is a good date. So I think it's good.
But we need to be wary that a few members are not here. So I would recommend we send a really quick 24-hour doodle poll and say either the 14th or 21st, because the iJogs events is on the last week of June, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So then we can give a choice for 14th or 21st and move on. If we just give one day,
well,
it's too tight. I am thinking about Kenji, and I'm thinking about iJog, and I'm thinking the members that are not here today, maybe it's just kinder to send 2 dates, not 1, 2, and then doodle pool, move on, 24 hours or 7, what is it?
The only problem with that is that one of the options is literally next Tuesday.
Yeah.
So like if the poll runs for 3 days,
2 days, 2 days.
that doesn't matter. It's already kind of like tight for people to potentially rearrange calendars. Like if you tell somebody it's next Tuesday, then they got some time to put that aside, like make arrangements. If you tell someone it's maybe next Tuesday, well, what are they going to do with maybe?
Yeah, good point, David. I suggest
define that fixed. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
Emily, go ahead.
Yeah, I suggest that just send a note to say announce the next week, Tuesday next week is a steering committee call. So this is 7 days in advance. So as David says, you can rearrange other activities.
It's Quandale Dingle here. I have been arrested for multiple crimes, including
All right, there's
grand theft,
someone's got their
declaring
audio
moral
going.
and public indecency. I will be escaping prison on March 28th. After that, I will
I
take
think you're going to need to use your moderator capabilities and mute that person.
Name Peter needs to be muted.
Little Zoom bombing going on there.
That's kind of what I'm thinking too. I forgot to turn on.
Dingle put illegal substances in my ramen and I died. Hey fellas, it's Quandale Dingle here. I put Bert's
Tell you what,
Vladimir
sorry,
Putin's drink and he went to bed for a really long time. My autistic son's hand in an air fryer.
There we go.
Got him.
All right.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to enable the waiting room. Now
Is it
there's
something I did wrong?
someone coming in under the name Benjamin Yingling.
Well, I recommend
In the
no
waiting
because
room?
the timing is terrible.
Right. That's what I'm thinking too.
So yeah, are we okay to do it next Tuesday? Just to give people adequate at least 7 days to make arrangements.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
So I'll send out a note to the community and the working group, basically saying we're going to try and schedule it for next week. And are there any like hard no's where they can't find a proxy vote or primary alternate can't make it. So okay. So with that one done, the other topic I wanted to get to was BJ. You have a couple of items.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, so we had the votes that went through those. They concluded last week. I probably need to do a formal capture of the vote. I'm not sure how you guys do that. You just sort of reiterate it back to the list, or you capture it somewhere else in a Google Doc or something. But basically it was, I think for the first one, there was 9 votes, all +1s. I think all of them are committers, but I'm not entirely positive. But in any case, there were no negative votes in any event. So I think we can easily declare that one as an approved vote. For the second one, we had a discussion of it at last week's call, and I think there was some confusion over what exactly the motion said. So we may want to have a rethink about it. And I'm glad you're here today, Dave, because you were missing last week and you're the one whose opinion I think we need to weigh in on. And I think the issue came up with the fact of whether or not we want to allow the individual microprofile specifications to vary in their dependency on their dependent Jakarta EE versions. So that one microprofile specification could depend upon a different version of CDI than another microprofile specification. And then this was raised by Jan, I think, as a build issue, in that people wanting to use both of the microprofile specifications would be exposed to 2 different transitive versions of CDI.
Just on that note, we did mark all of the versions that we depend on provided, so there are no transitive dependencies, or there should not be at least any transitive dependencies.
I think is one is transitive dependencies, the other one is harder dependencies. So basically, it's this is Ian's diagram demonstrate. So it's like if config use CDI like 4.0, for example, and then it's kind of the pull in 4.0. But for tolerance, say, okay, I am happy to with the Jakarta E9. So it's kind of the and then it's kind of I go with CDI 3. So it's kind of the, and then in the full kind of the platform release, so we could end up, we'll have both CDI kind of the 3.0 and 4.0.
Well, it would work. It would work like the Java versions, right? So if fault tolerance used, Java 8, for example, and config used, I'm just making this up, Java 17, and we included config in the platform, then by definition, the Java version that we need is 17.
For the platform. But I think the problem is that's not a practical issue for people in Maven builds, right? They just need to pick the right JDK to compile with that supports the highest class file version they encounter. But I think this is a little bit different in the sense that if two MicroProfile specifications depend upon having hard dependencies on different versions of a Jakarta specification, then that puts Maven in the position of having to make a choice, which may not be entirely transparent.
But again, as I mentioned, hold on, just let me, I just want to make, because I mentioned it and we jumped over it like I never said it. There are no hard dependencies on any of the specifications. All of the dependencies should be marked for Jakarta specs. They should all be marked provided. So from a Maven scenario, they're not getting pulled in at all. The user has responsibility to specify the Jakarta EU versions that they want to use. So the premise that we're creating doesn't exist.
Not necessarily. So it's kind of in CDI, not in CDI, in config, it directly the kind of the some annotations directly uses the Jakarta EE annotations such as like So that's
right, but from a Maven perspective, there isn't a dependency.
No, quite to understand what do you mean in Maven the dependency is not quite a dependency.
Well, right. So I have to look myself, but I recall we've had this, we crossed this bridge already in the past where we marked all of the APIs that we use from a Jakarta perspective. We marked them all provided, such that if you we probably should go check like right now.
Yeah, I'm looking at the parent MicroProfile parent, and it's using our CDI example. It is a provided scope dependency in the dependency management section.
Right. Yeah. So in that scenario, the user has the responsibility to actually explicitly declare a CDI dependency.
Yeah, but then he need to know which one to choose. And if he could look at the different dependencies defined or versions defined as provided, he need to choose one of them and maybe get confused if there are two different major versions. And if it is even possible to combine two major versions of CDI. Which
well, you would pick one or the other, you wouldn't combine them, right? And the same rule would apply as with JDK versions. If you pull in a library that uses Java 17, you can't continue to choose to use Java 8, period. It's very direct.
Yeah, but you still might have the issues even when the specification says one microprofile specification, for example, says pull CDI 3.0.1, I think. And the other says pull CDI 4.0.1.
Right, then you have to pick the biggest number, like you have to pick the biggest version of Java. I think
Right,
it's
it's exactly the same.
But you cannot ensure that the other specification is fulfilled, because there might be a breaking change in between them, and the old specification not updated will not work.
right. So that also may then be a scenario where they can't use that older version of the MicroProfile specification because they need one that runs with the newer version of CDI.
Right.
Yes.
But we fix all this at the platform level. We take care of this at the platform level. So this only applies to users who are not using the platform.
Yeah, and these users need expert knowledge to know that they could run it with a higher version of CDI or not, and then need to do something else or not use that specification at all.
Right. I mean, in our, not only in our MicroProfile platform, but in our MicroProfile implementations, we work all this out, right? And we say, hey, if you want to use, Open Liberty, this is the Java EE version, this is the Jakarta EE version, this is the MicroProfile version, and it's all hammered out. So there shouldn't really be any confusion.
Right. I mean, I guess if you're using a platform, you're going to pick a platform and they're going to give you the limited permutations that are available to you.
Yeah, so user have the expectation there's a defined version where it's safe to combine the specific component specification of that platform. And I don't have, I don't get two answers for one question, for example, which version to use.
Right, because I mean, like the implementation is likely going to ship with the CD, like your platform that you download, we'll call it the implementation, meaning like Open Liberty, for example, it's going to come with a CDI version. There's no question about which one it is.
I think for the runtime is not a problem. I think it's only talking about what Jens kind of architecture for the compile and etc.
Right. I think using Open Liberty is challenging too, because we support different versions of different things, but there are only certain combinations that are going to work. You can't pick all of the combinations.
Right. And you give people directions, advice on how to compile. I'm assuming, so that they can make sense of that. I'm assuming you give people help.
I would agree. Yes. I mean, we have starters and things like that help them out. Right, but I also, the other thing too is the counterpoint to Jan's issue is that yes, they might need expert advice to choose, but the alternate is that we give them no choice and tell them exactly what to use, and it's always the latest version.
Yeah. On the Jakarta side of the fence, we don't release all the specifications every time, right? So for example, I think we did do a service release of EJB, but we were not obligated to. That we only did that because of the module info edition. But if we hadn't, it would say it requires an older version of transactions than would be present in Jakarta E10. But it wouldn't be a problem because it gets worked out at the platform level and at the implementation level. It's not really scalable. If we just momentarily talk about things in the Jakarta, there are 30 specs and they all have dependencies between each other, and they're not all going to get released every major version. It would be just simply impossible for us to force all those spec teams to re-release their specs just because they're referring to a version of another spec that is now more current than they are, even though there's no work that they're doing and the dependencies marked provided anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but transactions is a good example. Transaction has a dependency to a CDI 3.0.1, I think, dependency. And if you want to combine transactions with a servlet container, for example, and you accidentally put your transaction configuration as a dependency before you add servlet, which points to servlet 6.0, for example, and that requires another CDI version, or some of the annotation version is different, and something else to link together. Then you accidentally pull CDI, an old CDI version that might not work with all the other dependencies.
Well,
and you don't see that. You have to do that with expert knowledge, and you have to make that definition, because Maven chooses the first that fits in that transitivity level.
Yeah, again, there are no transitive dependencies. So all of that you describe is the user having to add the CDI version that they intend to use, and that would be dictated by the implementation they choose.
Right, and looking at the Jakarta transactions POM, its dependency on CDI API is provided. So
exactly. So every time you say the transitive, it's false.
Yeah, the user is always forced to choose, right?
Yeah, but when the user looks at the version that is defined in that transaction, which version he might choose? The version that is defined there as provided with that version, and that's 3.0.1, for example, in the latest transaction release. There's
certainly if people are individually, if people
2.0.1,
yeah,
and which one you will choose. When you look at the dependencies, you'll see the definition of which version to use. You take that version, and you don't have the idea that you also can safely use, or you must use a higher version than that is defined there. And especially when that is a major release that is defined there. And there were a lot of changes in CDI. When you want to combine, then
I recommend that they use other documentation other than the reference in the POM, right? If for example, we have a specification, say fault tolerance, let's make up a number 6. That doesn't exist, right? But we're making up a number 6. Fault tolerance 6 depends on CDI 4, and fault tolerance 6 is used in MicroProfile 10 and MicroProfile 11. And it's the same fault tolerance 6. In that situation, MicroProfile 10 may use a different version of CDI than MicroProfile 11. But we haven't released a fault tolerance again. There's no way for that one already released fault tolerance 6 to refer to both versions of CDI. And our only other choice is to re-release fault tolerance again, with the only change being to upgrade the version of CDI on a dependency that is in itself already marked provided. So there'd be no technical reason for us to do so. The only reason for us to do so would be to communicate to the user that's the version used by the profile, MicroProfile umbrella spec, but we wouldn't be communicating to the user that the fault tolerance spec requires anything different other than the previous version that was already using. What I'm saying is that these are all non-technical things we're now doing. If we want to communicate to user what the correct version is, we should do that via specifications.
Are there bombs for the platform that could be also a way to communicate the version of CDI?
We do have, yeah. Well, we don't mark the CDI stuff, but that also goes into the scenario of what if we have the umbrella spec could use, say, for example, Jakarta E9 or Jakarta E10?
David, we do in our BOM, in our umbrella, we do a package CDI as well. So
it's not marked provided?
No, we package the APIs. It's not provided.
Well, I know we package the MicroProfile APIs, but do we package?
No, it is not provided in the BOM. Looking at the BOM.
Yeah,
Okay.
BOM is not, because with that's since the MicroProfile 1.0 we package it. So actually, I looked at our MicroProfile releases plan. We align with Jakarta E, Java E a few times. Like when we do the Java E8, we only re-released the Jakarta JAX RS 2.1. And then like in the 5.0, obviously we need to change all of them. So I think it's a kind of I think it's release less spec, the better. I'm wondering, Yan, if you could change your tool, if the dependency is provided, you could kind of change the wires set differently or not.
But I think if everyone is using provided, if Jakarta is using provided, and MicroProfile is using provided, then if Jan ignores provided things, then his graph is simply a bunch of islands.
Right.
No, the graph shows the whole world, but it shows the complete tree before the Maven chooses the version that it will pick by definition of order and transitive level.
Right, but if the dependency is provided, Maven will pick 0 versions.
Exactly. You keep saying transitive, but I mean, you do understand that when something is marked provided, there are no transits. There is not a dependency on it.
Exactly.
From a Maven perspective.
So sorry about. I'm going to just do a quick timeout. I know that we have one other topic we want to talk about today, Amelia, as it relates to swag and shipping and stuff. How much time will you need for that?
I would need 5 minutes, John.
Well, we
and
probably need more than 5 minutes. We
I-
probably should give it at least 10, right?
I am thinking maybe 10 just because people will ask, but also I think there's a topic for voting next week for the steering committee, which will be great. We can vote online as well, but more discussions and Q&A if needed on that day as well. Electronic voting and then closing it on that the day after the steering committee. That's what I'm thinking about.
Okay, and I mean, again, normally I try to make this a status call. This is a bit different because of the attendance today. So let's go ahead and continue this conversation. I just wanted the point of information, trying to figure out how much time she needed. So, all right, sorry about that.
We should probably cap ourselves and not let it go more than another 10 minutes.
Right. I mean, I think that to sum up, the reality is because provided is used everywhere, there are no transitive dependencies. And so therefore, there really isn't a problem per se in that we always require the user to pick their versions of CDI, etc. And it appears that the MicroProfile BOM has an opinion on that, right? So we can change that opinion from release to release of MicroProfile.
Well, not just the BOM, but like our specs, right?
Yeah. Obviously, the specs should be clear on this topic.
And the implementation, if we were to release a MicroProfile platform spec that had the ability to support either 9 or 10 of Jakarta EE, it would be up to the implementations to decide which ones they want to use. And then it's, of course, up to the users to decide what implementation they want to use. And then, therefore, they would get one or the other.
David, but what we did in the past, or with the latest versions of MicroProfile, we define special versions of Jakarta E component specifications. In the future, we might want to have a core profile definition only, which is a set of specifications that work together and could be tested together, and implementations could verify and get the logo on the box that they are compliant with that Jakarta E core profile set.
How is that related to the issue?
We define for a MicroProfile version part or a dependency, a provided dependency of the core profile version of Jakarta E, and therefore a set of specific component spec versions that are aligned to that MicroProfile versions.
Probably not.
We don't choose two or three Jakarta E versions.
Not necessarily, because like in umbrella release, that's for sure. We just target like a MicroProfile 6. We just say Jakarta E10 core profile. So it's however, like if we don't make any change in fault tolerance will continue work with like Jakarta E 9.1 or Jakarta E10. So
Yeah,
for the individual spec is different. However, for the umbrella spec, it's just a wire to one. I think in the past is kind of the same. Now is kind of, because as you said, is these individual ones group up. So we just say, okay, Jakarta E10.
Yes, correct. MicroProfile component specification could work with two sets of Jakarta EE versions.
Yeah, right. One or more. Like it could be, it could be the kind of thing where a spec says, I can work with CDI 1.0 or onward. I mean, but it's possible. Maybe not likely, but possible.
Yeah, it's possible. Like fault tolerance, if it's dynamic change, and then eventually you release the E11, and then it could work with the 9.1, 10, 11, 12, and etc.
Right, but at some point, as you pointed out, David, it's limited by the implementations available for you to use. They're not going to support every combination.
Of course, yeah, that's like those ranges are there to express to implementations. You have the ability to implement this spec on your older version or your newer versions, or you get the choice. Users are constrained by what the implementations choose, or users are building their own implementation component by component, which some people do, but that's a tough job.
Yeah, implementation, feel free to choose. Absolutely.
And to use your own example, Jan, of like, say we added a core profile, that is exactly why we cannot just magically force all the specs to use the same version, because they could get packaged together in two different umbrellas, right? So say we had the regular MicroProfile umbrella spec and the Java version is 11, and it can run on Java EE, Jakarta EE 9.1, for example. Then we make a cutting edge MicroProfile profile. It's in the cutting edge profile. It runs on 17, and it includes this one spec that requires CDI 5. I'm making up something that doesn't exist.
Jakarta config.
Sure. Okay, there you go. It requires Jakarta config, and the versions that it needs are higher. It also pulls in fault tolerance, just like the MicroProfile umbrella pulls in fault tolerance. So in that situation, it only makes sense for the individual, composite specs to dictate what versions that they require, and not force the one spec, say MicroProfile fault tolerance, to have to decide, well, on one hand, the cutting edge requires version 5, and on the umbrella spec requires version 3. Fault tolerance could run on either, but what are we going to do? How would we resolve that if the only way to resolve it, as you're saying, is to force the fault tolerance spec to pick one? It can be involved in one profile, but not the other. It doesn't work to have the individual component spec take on the responsibility for the component versions of the aggregate wrappers and like the different umbrellas. It should basically say, what I need is this. If you want to use me in any additional contexts, good for you. You can require different versions than the one that I've specified, as long as they're greater than the version that I've specified, not lesser. I need this version. Yeah. I can function on this. If you want to use me in other contexts, good on you.
What I want to say, it's true. It's the role of the umbrella specification to define that minimum level and in some aspects the maximum level that need to be used or can be used by component specs in that umbrella specification. What I'm saying, it's not only in every case in the future to choose only the higher version of two potential versions. In some cases, it's not working the either way. And then we have a severe problem. Maybe, CDI 5.0 has a breaking change to CDI 4.0, and it will not work. So it's the responsibility of the umbrella specification to define these constraints that need to be fulfilled for all included. Everything else need to be excluded from that platform.
Right. I mean, I think you're right. The umbrella spec has to do the work to decide that combinations are legit.
Right. We totally agree on that one. But that's what the vote says, right? The vote says that the individual spec really needs to say what its minimum requirements are. And it doesn't have to worry about upstream specs.
The other thing, the other thing is kind of when we do the ballot, put on ballot up, you also need to make sure compatible implementation pass all of the TCKs.
Exactly.
So in that case, the combination will be tested.
Right. So we have two checks. We have the composite specification, like aka the umbrella specification. But as you say, Jan, there may be another composite specification. We might have a MicroProfile core, like for example. It would be up to those composite specifications to work these issues out, see if there are any conflicts, and then again, it's up to implementations to verify that that is possible. And when we put a specification up for vote, we need to have not just a specification in TCK, but an implementation that runs. So it's basically impossible for us to accidentally have a conflict. All of this would be worked out.
All right. Sorry. Jan, so we kind of wanted a 10-minute cap, and that's about where we're at. So I guess my comment is, let's summarize what we've kind of discussed in the chat, in the meeting minutes, and then figure out how to continue the conversation. The right venue.
It's a topic for a technical call.
Yeah. It doesn't need to wait for it. Vijay, you were saying also when you started updating us that you wanted to close the votes. Usually you use Excel sheets and then you add committers and community. You sum the votes there and you copy paste into the thread with the vote, that screenshot, and then move on. Because if you remember, we still need to send it to the working group forum for, just for process. So that needs to be done.
Yes.
So, and there is nothing, you don't need to use a drive, just use your own space, Excel, committers, community, sum, move on.
We don't really need to use Excel, do we?
Yes, like I would do that, yes, because it's easier.
I mean, like on the Apache side, we would just say there were 12 plus 1 votes.
Yeah, you can do that as
Hold on, I wasn't finished with that sentence. There are 12 plus 1 votes, 9 of them are binding, and then sometimes you list the individual people who voted.
Yeah, I would just do it in text so that it's searchable.
All in text.
So it's for Jens the question. Yeah, feel free to take the offline conversation on the mailing list, and then yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, so I did take a note on that aspect, and I am going to fast forward to Amelia about the stickers.
Just one quick thing there, though. On the vote that's in progress, do we want to just let that go another week before we wrap it up? And then based upon the discussion, if no one feels, I mean, I don't want to say that if no one feels the vote should be different, because votes are there to resolve differences. Do you know what I mean? So it's a sticky situation if we're in this, if the vote, if the majority of people are okay with the vote and there's a couple of people who don't like the vote, well, that's what votes are for, to get that to be wrapped up.
Right. I'm surprised, Jan, you didn't cast a vote on that.
Yeah, as I said, that's another topic, and that may take longer that we have here. But having a vendor-specific or one implementation for a chat tool to conduct the vote instead of the mailing list, independent by client accessible. Yeah, we use the wrong tool to do that. That's what I said 2 weeks before. I will start a conversation on the mailing list, and maybe we can have that vote open somewhere else. And when we link that together as a result, maybe some people might change their vote.
I'm not convinced that there's something wrong with the vote. I understand that you don't like the vote, but I'm not convinced that something's wrong with the vote.
Yeah, I mean, I think the vote's fine, given the information that provided scope is used everywhere, both in MicroProfile and Jakarta. There are no Maven issues. And in all cases, the user is forced to pick a version of CDI if he wants to use CDI directly.
Let's separate these two things. So for the first vote, there's no dispute. Just close that because it is already past the end date.
Only the result needs to be recorded.
Yeah. So the first one, let's close it. For the second one, if Yan want to do a discussion, because the BJ you started discussion thread. And then maybe it's on the vote, he said, let's extend for another a few days, 7 days.
Sure, like give it another week.
Yeah, and then because the people might change it because of Jan's discussion on the mailing list, but they may not. And then 7 days later, we just settle it. So
basically, basically you would get 7 days to convince people to change their votes.
Yeah.
Because and if you can't do it in 7 days, then the vote concludes.
Yeah, so
that means we're going
to keep on run a loop conversation.
So we'll continue to vote out to what, Wednesday the 15th?
14th, 7 days is next Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah. So you write your argument, Jan. Try to convince people that whatever way you think is the right way. And if people don't change their votes, the conversation's over.
Correct. And use the discussion thread, not the votes thread.
I will start a discussion on the mailing list if that is allowed.
There's already a discussion thread specifically for that vote. That's where you would make your comments.
So
I think it got messed up. I think for some reason I used Outlook, and Outlook, even though I created a completely separate email, jammed it into the thread in Google Groups. So it may help for Jan to start a brand new thread.
Okay.
Yeah, and just provide a link to the vote thread in your email, Jan.
Yeah, good idea. You start a discussion thread and then post on the voting thread. It said, I think this doesn't work because see my question.
We are not.
All right, so I'm going to try and move on to Amelia, and I think I said sticker. I think I meant basically shipping.
Yeah, shipping.
Swag.
Shipping. Can we
Yeah.
go down to the area? John, and thanks so much for sharing the screen. So if we go down, I can see what the proposal. So long story short, we have tackled all the logistics about the distribution for 2021 swag. That is $5,000 thus far and 380 t-shirts. This week we decided that we will print 5,000 stickers. That is a little bit less than $600, and it will be added. These are the communities that will get the swag, the region, the first swag, and then we have a still 2020 budget to do that. But we start like this. Every member will get some swag, including the committed rep, because it's a member. There is 11. Then we have chosen 5 different continents, different communities that are active in MicroProfile. Either they are providing workshops, getting speakers to talk about MicroProfile. They have users, you name it, a lot of support. So there are 11 different communities, Java communities active. There are more, but we are going to choose only 11 this time. And there is 1 or 2 events this summer that we have chosen here. If we go down from Jack Total, John, can you please go down, tab, what is it, row 60 there. So then the events, hopefully we make it so that iJack can have some t-shirts, but if it doesn't, well, so be it. Here we are, we're trying to get this process started. The plan that I'm proposing is that there are 23 communities. It would be amazing to have a broker. That means a shipping broker that will take care of the international swag and ship it to diverse areas and then move on. We have the infra email swag that allow us to speak privately with different communities and make sure that these communities want the swag and will accept and be on the lookout for the packages. Some countries, they charge you for getting shipments, like Latin America. Before retiring anything, you will need to pay a little amount because that is what tariffs are for. So then these communities will agree to pay for that because MicroProfile won't be paying for that as well. That is too much hassle and we don't have the bandwidth for it. So my feedback here and the level of current discussions during the marketing calls is we get a broker. The Lux printer is in Los Angeles at the moment. We can print these t-shirts in different continents as well in the future if we wish to, and minimize such a costs as well. But since this is the first one and we have had it since May, let's get it over. So John, can you go back into the minutes and questions before we go? This document is public. You can edit it and you can add information in the Git ticket. Here, I wrote a really quick.
Sorry, you asked
for questions and then he just kept talking.
Right, sorry.
I do that.
I do that all the time. Sorry.
Too, so
you in these sheets here we go back. In the sheet, there are the 2 important documents: the document you just saw, and the Git issue. If you have any feedback, use the Git issue to say, hey, what about this community? Clearly, remember we have 2022. So let's add as many communities, new communities to that. Let's, be agile and flexible this time around and just get it over with. If we read
So I have a question. When is that going to happen?
Yeah, right now. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So when you say the communities pay for the shipping, how does that work in practical terms?
That means that South Java will get their package, and to retire it from the aduanas, or whatever, aduanas and español. I do not know how to say it in English.
All right. So that there's 2 fees, right? So there's like when you ship a package, there's
Correct.
an upfront cost.
Yes.
Who pays that?
We pay that, MicroProfile.
Okay. Do we have budget for that?
Yes, we do, and it's in 2022 budget.
Have we discussed with the foundation how that would work? Because that would probably result in like a reimbursement.
Correct. And that is where the topic goes into the proposal. John, can you please go back into the minutes and see the proposal? The proposal needs to, I drafted it so that it can be adjusted, and it's here. And it tells you, oh, it's upper, it's large. There. To approve and ratify, here it is. It is editable. It tells you exactly what's going on. Clearly, we will only know the prices for each different country when the shipment is done. So we need to have flexibility because the broker will have to do this for us to make it iterable for different times, because every single time MicroProfile prints swag will likely use this kind of method. So here it is, the original. Please review it.
So I have a question. Does the broker have to have a relationship directly with the Eclipse Foundation? Just like
I don't think so.
swag printers do.
Yeah, like I don't think so, because with the swag, we have a direct relationship with the vendor, which means we work with the designers, we make sure that everything is okay with the print. And the only thing we welcome the Eclipse Foundation to do is to pay the invoice. They just need to provide a credit card and move on, because they are taking care of the accounting. The same with the broker. We expect the broker to say, hey, we will need a credit card or anything that they will need to make sure that we are a customer. And what I want to make sure is that we don't make work for the Eclipse Foundation team. That means if they have any questions about a package returning, because sometimes it happens, packages get returned because of missing a phone number. The person didn't go and pick it up in a month or things like that. So then, it gets returned so that the broker can contact us, right? Or whomever they,
There's a lot of time for you. You're showing up all the time. We only got 5 minutes to questions, so you gotta give more room. Do we have a broker in mind? Is there actually somebody who does this?
There are a lot of places in Los Angeles, but I have not contacted anyone because I want to make sure that we can do this.
Should we get, in order for this to be concrete, we would have to say, hey, these are the people who would do it. This is what it would cost.
It will not.
Now I'm still talking.
Yeah.
Foundation, can you go set up a relationship with them? Because otherwise we're saying we want something and then we're making the foundation find a vendor for us.
No. We will find the broker. We will do all the work with the broker, and one of us, I imagine it will be Tommy Tribe. I'm happy to set up this app so that it's iterable for any member to use it in the future. And then we will use a credit card, and then all the packages, the 23 packages, in the US, the Lux will ship all the US. And then for international, we will need the broker. The point is,
hold on. You got to give more room for questions, right?
Yeah.
So why would we be giving a credit card? Because what I'm suggesting is we find some people, or at least one person who'd be willing to do this, and then bring it to the marketing committee and discuss it. Right? What are their costs? How do they charge? Do we like the way it sounds?
I will tell you how it works quickly. The shipment is through USPS, and we will not know the actual price because it goes by pounds. So no broker can tell you an estimate, no matter the country, no matter anything. It goes by weight. So we will not know until you are at the postal office and you're ready to ship.
So what do they provide? Just labor?
They provide the labor. That's it. That's the only thing they have to do. They put the t-shirts and the stickers together. They box it and they bring it to the store, to the USPS, the cheapest way. They always ship it without insurance and move on and fill out all the
They manage the
forms.
returns, so there's additional process, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then they charge you a small fee. Last time I checked, like a few years ago, was like $15 a package or something, $10, but I'm not sure. I haven't checked.
That's
And
pretty steep, but I guess it's not. But anyway,
Mhm.
how many packages are we looking to ship? You had a big list.
It's 23 and a bunch of them are in the US.
Yeah, so
Another
it'd be
one,
23 boxes we got to pack and ship.
yeah, and the looks where the vendor, the printed the t-shirts, they can ship everything in the US, no problem, super easy. And then they will just do an invoice and move on. And that invoice can be paid by the Eclipse Foundation.
Okay, how many of them are overseas then? How many packages are overseas?
pretty much 80% of 23.
Okay, so well, I mean, I'm not gonna do them. It's like 6 minus 6, right? So it's like 17 in that range.
And I apologize, I do have a hard stop, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to drop.
Yeah. What? Oh, okay. I mean, I if we could find somebody who'd be willing to do this and get their costs, I think that would add some more concrete to this conversation.
Okay, so I can take care of that then and ship it. I can send it to. How should we communicate this, through the community or through the marketing? Some of you are not in the marketing forum.
Why don't the marketing people figure it out and make a concrete proposal with like actual costs of shipping? You know, actual costs of the not the shipping, but the person, the broker.
The broker. Okay, we can do that. I will. I will on that task because it's easier for me just to tackle it effortless. Okay. But please, everyone.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Yeah, read the proposal because it's important, and then we will figure this out.
Okay,
Clearly.
thank you.
Right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.